There's my outer form sitting over there on the bench. And down here we see a whole bunch of test blocks that I did trying to come up with the right ratios, sand, cement, and super plasticizer to do what I want to do. I saved you the suffering of watching me do all that, and what I have here are the last two that I poured using the same formulation. They're about a week old. I haven't demolded them yet. Same formulation, sand, cement, and super plasticizer. We're going to demold those right now, take a look at them, and then I will show you what I have for the actual formulation of the cement that I'll be using. We've got the tape on here to prevent getting any of the mixture into the screw heads, which makes them very difficult to remove if they're full of concrete. So here they are. You get a good look at them. These are both the same formulation. This one was a little bit low in the form. I did not have enough volume. This one was, oh, look at that big bubble there. This one was the perfect volume. And this also had a relatively nice surface finish. This one I was unable to get a trowel on it because it was below the level of the form. But you can see some of these others unable to get a good surface finish. They're all various combinations of cement and sand. This one I actually marked. That was a 1 to 4. If you can see, I scribbled into it. And too much W. That was too much water that was in this one. So this one is going to end up being much weaker than the rest of them. This one I have marked 1 to 4, but I've decided I'm going to go with a 1 to 3 mixture. These were left over where I mixed too much, and I just poured them into some forms. So there's all my tests, and those two are the ones that I'm going to end up with. So now what we're going to do is we're going to mix up another batch for one of those forms, and we'll show you the process and the formulations I used. Now, before we get into the actual mixing of my new cement formula, let's take a look at just exactly how I came to that formula. Now, over here I've got the total worksheet where I was starting out using a 1 to 3 by weight. Cement or concrete is mixed by weight, not volume, where I'm going to work out how I'm filling up a 16 cubic inch form, which is what my test forms were. They were 1 inch tall and 4 by 4. So we go through the whole formula as we go through the worksheet, figuring everything out and coming up with a few variables. And we continue down solving for some of those variables, and as you can see, it's quite the thing to get there. But now we get down to the actual formula. This is the ratio numerator, ratio denominator, and I'm mixing at a ratios of 1 to 3, so those will be actually 1 and 3, but they're all variables at this time. Also based on the density of the cement, the density of the sand, the total volume that's going to be filled, and there is an adjustment factor for shrinkage, because once we mix the sand and cement with water, the total volume gets smaller. So here's our solution for the weight of cement in ounces and the weight in sand by ounces, or we can eliminate the weight in sand by ounces since we're mixing 3 times the cement, it would be the weight of the cement times the ratio denominator. So now, what does it look like in my Excel spreadsheet? So here is my Excel spreadsheet. And over here we've got this whole section can basically be ignored. These were ratios and volumes that were mixed from a website where I got some of this information from. These are my conversion factors if I'm going from ounces to grams, pounds to grams, ounces to milliliters, and so forth. And here is the actual worksheet. I ended up with a water ratio of 41%, seemed to work the best, using a super plasticizer ratio of 1%, and here's where I enter my cement to sand ratio. Once these are entered, it spits out all these numbers. Here is the volume of my form and the ounce per weight. And up here at the top, you can see the formula that I plugged in from my worksheet, which gives me, to fill this cubic inches, I need 5 ounces by weight of cement and 15 ounces by weight of sand. And then it converts it to cups if I want to measure it with cups. And here it is in pounds. And with the water ratio of 41%, this gives me the total dry weight, ounces of water, and converting it to cups, quarts, fluid ounces, and all the way down the line for measuring this out. And then at the last line is my super plasticizer. Mixed at 1%, and it tells me over here how much I need to add. Down here at the bottom is where I have my adjustment for shrinkage. This was the shrinkage I found to exactly fill my 16 cubic inch form, but I'm going to make this a little bit bigger because we definitely don't want to come up with too little. So I'm going to end up actually adding to this. Over here on another worksheet, I've got everything that comes up with the densities of each of the components. Over here is the density of the cement. What I did is I took a number of 1 cup measurements of cement and added them all up and came up with an average, which then gets plugged in up here. Did the same thing for the sand, and water is just known measurements for water. But that is the worksheet. Now let's get down to mixing some cement. There's my worksheet with the quantities I need to mix for this last test pour. Down here are a couple of buckets that has my cement and sand. So I'll be scooping that out and measuring them that out by weight there in that container. That's going to be my mixing container sitting there on the scale. There we have our worksheet, we have our container ready. The first thing we're going to measure out is 5.44 ounces of cement. There's 5.45. I think that's going to be close enough. So now we zero out the scale. Next one is 16.3 ounces of sand. I wanted 16.33, that's 16.31. and that's 16.36. So you can see how little makes a difference. There's 16.32. So there's our cement sand mixture. Next, we need to go over and measure out the super plasticizer. Now, anybody that's familiar with reloading should know what this kind of a scale is. So, just a regular old balance beam, but it measures in grains. So I'm converting the super plasticizer I need, which was 0.5 ounces. We come all the way down to my conversion, 23.81 grains. So we're already set at 23.8. Now we're set at 23.8 grains. This is the super plasticizer. Make sure it's moving freely. And of course, anybody that is not familiar with this, well, when this needle is even with a 0, then the measurement is done. There we go. And just to confirm, I'm looking at the scale that I'm set at 23.8 and back to my sheet, 23.8. So there is the super plasticizer. Now, back to my mixing bucket. Here we are with the bucket. Here is my measured super plasticizer into the bucket. We're going to seal it off and mix it up. That should be thoroughly mixed, but I need to turn the fan on before I open this up. There's nothing in this thing that you want to inhale. And we want to make sure all that dust gets sucked outside. So there's my concrete mix for my last test pour. Now let's get it set up over here to mix it up. Alright, when mixing all the other weights, I forgot to show mixing the water. Here again we got the same scale. And per my formula, we need 2.31 ounces of water. So we carefully pour it in. Now I'm going to stop at 2. We're going to have 2 ounces there. Okay, decided to do this a different way. Let's get up to the 2.31. There's 2.28. I'm going to start with a little less, and if I have to, I'll add the rest. So there's my water. I've got 2.31, that's 2.28 that's in the cup, and a little extra here. This is about 5 milliliters of water that I pulled out. So now, let's get to mixing. Well, unfortunately, I won't be able to show you what's happening inside the bucket because my tripod doesn't go up any higher, but this is my hat mixer. In goes the first 2 ounces of water. That wasn't 3 minutes, but we need to stop for a second here and scrape the sides and bottom to make sure everything is getting mixed properly. It should be a consistency that'll flow somewhat. And that's about right. So we're not going to add that extra water unless it does something strange in the form. So we have our mixture ready to put in the form. First, we're going to go in there and clean up our tools. We have our form ready. Corners are sealed up with just some silicone caulking, and we're going to just put a little bit of this in there to see if it's the consistency that I want. So essentially, just by shaking this, it should start to level out. And that looks pretty good. And many of you may have already seen my vibrator hack. Should be able to see the bubbles coming to the surface. You need to make sure these little bits go in there because I'm still monitoring total volume. I should have more than enough to fill this one now since I added a little. What I just noticed is I forgot to cap all the screws. That's right to the ledge, and I still don't have enough overage. This is all that's left in the bucket. It's just a little bit too much, so I still have to adjust my final quantities. Just make sure I've got everything out. Scraped to the bone. And that's it. Checking the time. I'm going to come back and check this in 30 minutes. We're at the 30-minute mark. And the surface is pretty firm. Doesn't shake as much when I wiggle it. is I would consider that trowel ready after 30 minutes. It's one of the advantages of using the super plasticizer is it sets faster. So we're done with this. We're going to put it aside, wrap it up in plastic, and we'll pop it out of the form tomorrow. Unfortunately, the video of demolding this brick was lost, but I can say it came out exactly like I wanted, bringing an end to my testing. The next video to be published will be placing of the forms. Be sure to subscribe to follow this project and hit that notification bell to be informed of future updates.